Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to episode 336 of the Anfield Index Podcast, broadcasting to you from my field here in beautiful rural Ireland. I'm Trev Downey and I'm joined for tonight's show by Karl Coppack and by Lisa Marie Hanahan as we have a little chat about what has gone on over the last week or so since we last spoke and what is to come in the week facing us, which of course begins tomorrow. We're recording this Sunday evening, tomorrow night, for the Reds getting their game against Manchester United out of the way. And I can't help but think that's going to be atypically a focus for us because we don't tend to focus on the games coming up. But regardless of how that goes, and even if you're listening to it in the aftermath of the result, a lot of the things that we will want to be saying about that, about them, about us, about the situation in the season so far will be relevant regardless of what we've achieved. So hopefully that won't date too badly. Now, I wanted to start the show here. And by the way, just in case, I'm not sure if one of you is aware of it there, but there's a lot of banging against the mic there just for the benefit of our gentle listeners' ears, if you could keep an eye on that. So, and just as I say that, there goes a car going by loudly in the background in my area because I can't keep the window shut this evening. Sorry about that. So I wanted to start off by just there are a lot of incredibly inspirational people out there, people who can put words together in a way that is just endlessly fascinating. And I think of my own favorite, Jimmy Joyce there. He wrote in Ulysses, "A father," Stephen said, "battling against hopelessness is a necessary evil." Love that one from Jimmy. I think a lot of people will be able to relate to it. But, it's not just that. Let's have a look at another one. From a portrait of the artist as a young man this time, Joyce says, "No God for Ireland," he cried. "We've had too much God in Ireland. Away with God." And that, of course, speaks to the existential crisis he was having, not to mention the crisis of faith. And I wanted to greet you guys this evening, our lovely listeners, in a way that I thought was on a par with that. Because, gentle listener, I want to be honest with you. I'm not going to lie. I think of you. I dream of you. Can't help thinking pulling you was my greatest ever coup. So, Lisa Marie Hanahan, how are you this evening in the wake of those wonderful lines?
Well, I don't know that I'm quite that insightful this evening, but okay. And it's only afternoon, so maybe I'll, as the day goes on, perhaps I'll step it up a notch.
Well, I know you're fond of words, and I thought, what better way to start the show for Lisa Marie than to juxtapose a bit of Jimmy Joyce and Ryan fucking Giggs. So there you go. It's just that's how we roll around here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that you have something to start the show in as well.
I do. It's kind of a little just, I guess, anecdote, and then I'm going to turn it to a question to both of you.
Oh.
So my parents are both from Michigan originally. I think I've mentioned that before. And this past week they were up there visiting some family and friends. And we used to go every summer when I was a kid. My grandparents, of course, were alive at the time. We used to go up every summer to visit. And there were things that we could get there kind of in the way of food and stuff that, were things that we could only get up there, weren't available to us down here in Tennessee. And one of those was there was an Italian grocery store that my grandparents, frequented that had the best homemade Italian bread. And so we would, go through, I don't know how many loaves when we were there on our visit, and we usually got a couple to bring back with us to Tennessee. Well, now it's become a thing that when my parents go up there, they always bring back a loaf for me and a loaf for my brother to have. And so I've got this. And so, but there's something about it that when I open it and just the smell of it and everything else, it takes me immediately back to like my childhood and sitting at my grandmother's kitchen table, making sandwiches and everything else. So Trevor, Karl, is there some food or something like that that you don't have necessarily on a regular basis that takes you like straight back to some point in your youth?
Oh, it's a good one, actually. I like this interactive beginning. I'll fill this one first so I can go to Karl, and then we can segue from Karl's answer to getting Karl's intro. The childhood thing is interesting, and I have very fond memories of being in my grandparents' house as a youngster, maybe for weekends on occasion. And my granny used to cook these particular rashers and bacon, you know. We always had a cooked breakfast because they were farmers, and my uncle would be coming in from doing maybe a couple hours work and having done milking. So I'd get up 8 o'clock and have breakfast with him. And it was always like a real proper big country breakfast, sausages and rashers and loads of brown bread and homemade soda bread. And that, now that you mention it, that soda bread taste, if I was to get that again, that would bring me right back there, because I haven't tasted it since, maybe once or twice in the few times maybe my mother tried it, but it wasn't quite the same. So that, if I could, would bring me back. But I'd imagine as well if I was to source that particular brand of bacon perhaps as well. But similarly, it's such a distinctive taste. I haven't had it since. And now I'm thinking these might be two good projects for my last week of my holidays. So I do appreciate the inspiration. Karl, what about you? Any foods you associate with times gone by?
Yeah, and sadly it sounds really, really stereotypical and on brand. And it's my nan's scouse, because every nan in Liverpool made scouse a slightly different way from somebody else. And it was just gorgeous. Just absolutely gorgeous, and you know, I can do a pan of scouse here quite easily, but it's not going to go anywhere near what my nan's was. And if my nan was here today, she wouldn't be able to tell me what was so good about hers that, you know, that is better than mine. So it is like a sort of it's like, you know, a spell, you know, tapping or a magic wand on a cauldron and saying, you know, and there is Nana Mulligan's scouse.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And you know, died in '94, so you know it's not going to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm sort of while we're doing the old Proust bit here, beginning of AIP, it's yeah, and it's never going to come back, never.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. I like what you're saying, that there's some sort of I don't know, mad alchemy that these figures from the past had when they were doing their little recipes for us. But honestly, I think you'll find it was just loads of salt.
Yeah, I'm very probably sort of
quite possibly, yes.
Lots of salt and maybe lots of butter and those type of things. And you know, you try to make the versions we make of them, like, you know, it all due credit to yourself, I'm sure you make a lovely pan of scouse, Karl, but they're probably quite anodyne by comparison, you know, because of that, because we're trying to be all, you know, a man like yourself cannot make a heart unhealthy pan of scouse, I would imagine. So, you know, there's probably a few things lacking in terms of the old days. What have you got for us to begin the show with before we get into some footy chat?
Well, I'll come back to this, but since we're talking about this, I've just thought of a quote, which is I wasn't going to do, but I've just looked it up now. And it's Principal Skinner from the Team Homer episode of The Simpsons. And he says, the year was 1968. We were on a recon in the streaming Mekong Delta. An overheated private remote removed his flak jacket, revealing a T-shirt with an ironed-on sporting the mad slogan, "Up with miniskirts." Well, we all had a good laugh, even though I didn't quite understand it. But our momentary lapse of concentration allowed Charlie to get the drop on us. I spent the next 3 years in a POW camp to subsist on a thin stew made of fish, vegetable, prawns, coconut milk, and 4 kinds of rice. I came close to madness trying to find it here in the States. We just can't get the spices right. That just made me think of that. Just like obviously horrible being a captive prisoner of war, but my God, that coconut milk was really worth sticking around for.
The grub was fantastic. Yeah, God, those writers, I have to say, back in the day when they were doing that really well, they were kind of untouchable. I mean, I don't know what I don't want to get into it in too much depth, but I don't know when the quality started to fall away, but there was a couple of seasons there, maybe 8 to 10 of them, where it was just solid gold all the way through.
I think it was always, but the episode where Last Exit to Springfield, where Homer's the union rep, I think is the most perfect half hour of television. Every single line in that is just incredible. Yeah.
I mean, look, honestly, if we were to start throwing quotes, you'd be here all day. But it was properly good writing. It was really on the money, I have to say. And what I like about the writers in The Simpsons is they're equal opportunities stereotypers and insulters. I mean, the Irish get it a lot, but so does every other nationality. I mean, look at the way Italians are portrayed. Like, for the love of God, it's just and it's, I think it's done in a way that isn't nasty either. So you can
when they do the bit where they become pin pals, they go where they start the bowling team. There's a team they play called the Stereotypes, with Cletus the slack-jawed yokel, the Italian bloke, the bumblebee Mexican man. And I think Apu says that they begged me to join that team. That was a really nice way of saying it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you recall, there's an episode where you two make a cameo, and the way that Homer breaks in backstage is to put on a flat cap, a kind of a tartan for some reason waistcoat, and carry a bag of spuds over his shoulder and go, "Potato Man." And of course, then he gets instant access to the backstage because the boys would be lost without their fucking spuds because Irish, So, I mean, fair play. So I want to start steering it towards the target marked LFC. And last time we were chatting, there was the sort of unedifying spectacle of having drawn a game, and then there's been another one of those comparatively unedifying spectacles since. And I wonder how this is sitting with you. Now, we can't lie, we can't ignore the facts of reality, and we are doing this show within an hour or so of a very pleasant reality, which is that Manchester City did drop 2 points today against Newcastle. So you have a situation now as we look forward to our next game where, should we win it, it's only 2 points back on our main title rivals, in inverted commas. So that's something very positive to kind of cue this up with. But before we do that, I do want to look back over the last week or so, whatever's been happening that took your eye, whether it's that last game and something from it. And I understand it's quite back in the distance now. We're literally talking about 6 days ago. But just in case there is something from that you want to reach back and grab into, that's fine. And if not, is there anything in particular that you want to focus on, Liverpool-related story, or just something that's going on that's grinding your gears? Karl, I'll start with you on this one.
I was at the Palace game, and by about 5 minutes before the end of the game, 5 minutes after the game, I'd sold Darwin Núñez. Now, The way these things work is that you could have said to me, yes, I know you're emotional, we didn't win, the Reds were really weird all night, the shape was appalling. All we did was lump balls into the box with Darwin Núñez, and he's not that sort of player, but we tried to make out that he was. The world's greatest right back was sat in the centre circle for much of the second half. He didn't quite understand either. And the lad takes 2 goes to get sent off. And it's interesting. The next day, I said, there's going to be a lot of talk of, let's stay on, let's support Darwin for what he's done. I'm still furious with him. I really am, because the fact that he missed the first one, knew he gets sent off, because you can't, everything's in camera these days. Everything is there to be seen and witnessed. Knew he gets sent off, and then had another go a few seconds after that as well. There's going to be lots of LFC family I support him. I'm still angry with him. But I think some good will come of it, because I think we play Firmino tomorrow, and then the system settles down again and we start being Liverpool again, rather than just bumping big balls into middle and isolating Mo on the right. I think that's going to be the plus side of this.
So there's a couple of things here I want to tease out with you, and I'll bring Lisa Marie in on the back end of this conversation as well, so you can be prepared to give us your tuppence worth on that if you want, Lisa Marie. So a couple of things that you brought up there I'm interested in. First of all, I didn't see it as critically, the football played by us in the first or second half, whether Núñez was on the field or not. I did almost again understand a couple of things there, like what you're talking about, the odd positioning of Trent in the second half, because it was kind of a forced hand, and he was trying to do creative stuff in that area.
Yeah, he went up front for it as well.
Yeah, pretty much, So there were a couple of things. I suppose I didn't find them as offensive. And again, it's interesting because you've got literally the proper view of the game when you're at it. You can see more than people can see on TV, and you can get a feel as well, maybe, for how people are reacting. So that's very interesting, one. But two is, people are going to be sitting there thinking, but the lad didn't intend to. And people are going to be saying, but we can't be that hard on him. He's only a youngster and all the rest of it. But I find it really interesting that you have the strength of opinion that you have on it. And I could very much lean into it myself. And I just want you to explain to people who might be listening to this going, oh, but he's only a youngster, he cut him some slack, or he didn't actually intend to headbutt him, and it was the other guy made a meal of it, and sort of it was an accidental headbutt as such. What's your take? Well, if you do look at it, it's the way your man moves towards him. I think Núñez is intended to stick his head into his chest, which would still have gotten him sent off. But as it happens, your man moves to him and he makes contact with his face, so he's done. It's over.
I can't forgive, but I could almost forgive it, I'd say, if he turned around and smacks him, with his forehead. But the fact that he had a little go first, because he's being pushed around a bit, and the lad who played him was their best player, I thought. Anson was very good on Monday. You don't get to piss about with Liverpool because you're angry. We're a goal down. You know that if you do that, you're going to be sent off. So to go back and do it again because you missed the first time, I'm not saying get rid of him. I'm not saying, he's the worst player in the world or anything like that. But what I'm not doing there is standing up saying, oh, poor lad, he's only young. It's his first game it's an early goal in the Premier League. He's not 6. He's a professional footballer. He knows what he did there. And yeah, you can call it naive. And I completely applaud what the manager said, which was, we're going to talk to him about it, but not from a punishment point of view. We're going to talk about how he can be clever, how he can use his aggression. But it's the fact that he did it twice, and you don't get to shove your frustration onto the world while you're wearing a Liverpool shirt and we're a goal down at home to Crystal Palace, following a game where we'd already drawn the first game, which he scored in, obviously. So he's a great player, but that really, really annoyed me. And it still does, to be honest. I'm still annoyed at that. But of course, when he comes back, I'll be fine. But we're not going to see him for a bit.
Can I ask you then, just before we go to Lisa Marie for her take on that particular incident, can I ask you just what you think, and there's context now with today's result. Are you despondent? I mean, I know you're not a runner, right? We get that. But did you think people were making way too much out of the fact that we dropped 4 points? Or can you understand that it actually is quite a gut punch to an awful lot of people like yourself and myself and Lisa Marie, who really think we have a chance of winning this freaking league and we can't be lax? Yep. So where are you sitting with that, with the loss of those 4 points? Because they were 4 points coughed up for sure.
Well, it's a loss of 2 points now. So, and then we beat Manchester City, we go above them. So it's, no, I don't get that. Yeah, we're going to have to win every single game now to win the league. No, I can't see that happening at all. I mean, not if Man City are throwing away Leeds at Newcastle, and Leeds United are battering Chelsea, and Arsenal are currently top of the league, and Arsenal are a really weak club. So no, you can't throw away the league after a home draw where we were unlucky. I thought as well. I thought the manager got a few things wrong on obviously the Gomez thing, but no, we start again tomorrow night.
Like that, and we're going to talk plenty about that particular game. But Lisa Marie, to bring you in on the last one, feel free to chat about the Darwin Núñez thing if you do have a strong opinion on it one way or the other. If you don't, that's absolutely fine. But do tell us what it is that's been, like I say, grinding your gears or actually making you smile over the week in relation to our club and the stories around it.
Well, the day of the game, I only saw the second half. Now I have gone back and watched the first half, and I really had just kind of put it on or had it on. I was working, and I just kind of happened to look up as the whole thing with Darwin Núñez happened, and I was a little bit, I don't know, I don't want to say confused. That makes me sound a little simple, but I guess, it just kind of took me a beat or two to sort of understand, because it's just not something we're used to seeing from our players. And then it just took a minute or two for me to kind of, understand the whole, what was going on. And, I understand a red card and everything, but it was so atypical of what we have seen from this team in the last few seasons that it just kind of threw me a bit. But I do feel we responded very well when we went to 10 men. I think the rest of the team can, take some pride in the way that they kept their heads up. And of course, Diaz got the goal and we responded very well to that. But on the flip side, I hope that's not a situation that we have to respond to, anytime in the near future.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I want to focus on a couple of positives there, not just for the sake of sunshine and puppies, but because it's relevant. I mean, we can't really talk about that game and ignore that wonder goal that was struck. And yet I found myself talking about it in a certain way afterwards. And it was in keeping with almost every other shot that we took. It was frantic. It was high speed. All the other attempts were at full stretch or just at really high pace and all that kind of thing. Nothing was composed about us, which I think Karl might have alluded to earlier on, and probably what you're suggesting there, you weren't really recognizing what you're seeing. That chaotic thing I think could work in our favor if we can harness it a little bit, but it's a beautiful goal, don't get me wrong, and it's every ounce of it is deliberate, but again, it's in keeping with what we were doing. There was no deliberate City style pass till the other team's dead goal, which we are capable of and we seem to aspire to. But when we have a dodgy final ball or we can't finish, then we can't do that. So unlike Karl, I'm a bit gutted. I was really enjoying, and I just want to get your take on this, I was really enjoying the change up of having someone to aim diagonal balls at or crosses at and seeing him knocking them down for Mo Salah, and we know what that guy's control is like. So for me, that was an exciting little thing. I hate us to do it all the time, and I don't think we will, but I did like it as an addition to the armory, if you know what I mean, Lisa Marie.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And again, I think because I didn't really start watching it until the second half. So it was and that was part of why I went back. I have, since gone back and watched the first half just to kind of understand the discussion that took place, with you and the guys on Raw afterwards. And I did call in to Nina's show, and just gave my, little bits, on what I saw in the second half. But, I think Harvey played very well. Of course, I'm going to say that.
He did, though. Yeah, he really did.
Yeah. But you know what? Actually, I mean, I do think he played well, but I'll tell you. So, and I don't know if either of you saw it, but he did a post-match interview, and I'm sitting there watching him, and not so much listening to what he was saying, but the way he was saying it. And I was very impressed with the maturity of a 19-year-old. He's obviously he's taken to the media training very, very well. But the way he answered the questions that were being put to him I thought was very impressive for, a 19-year-old. Again, as the mother of two young men, I found that very impressive.
Yeah.
He had the composure after that game, with all that had taken on. And I mean, it was, immediate, it's one of the, and I don't remember who it was for, who he was talking to specifically, but I thought his composure and his maturity and the answers he gave, they weren't just like 1-2, phrase answers. There was some depth to what he was saying. And I just thought that was, he's obviously a very intelligent kid.
Yeah, articulacy is not.
Thank you. That's what I'm looking for.
It's not in the gift of every teenage lad, if we're being honest. And of course, footballers, cliched or otherwise, are famously not the most expressive or innovative in the way that they express themselves. And yet, it is quite a common thread actually running through the crew that we have, that they are capable of articulating their ideas very, very clearly. And it's nice to see him do that, because what it does is it shows he's a full package, because that's how he plays. I don't know what you think about that, Karl, to just come in on this point about Harvey Elliott, because there's going to be an awful lot needed from that kid if we don't sign anyone before the end of the window. And I bow to nobody on that opinion, because it's simply fact. We have too many people who are not robust enough, and we're going to need him. And if he's not up to scratch and we don't get in a reinforcement, then that is going to be a factor in how we go throughout the season. So it is encouraging, isn't it, to see that so far it looks like we could have a good one on our hands here again.
Harvey Elliott is going to be playing for Liverpool this season an awful lot, and I think we should get used to it. And so is Curtis Jones. And they're both very, very good footballers at what they do. The only thing is against them is lack of experience and age. And there's only one way to put that right. So, it's not, it's not as if it's, news to anyone, but, we've got these players to play them. The whole point of this is that they get to play for Liverpool, and which is a fantastic thing, because they're incredibly good footballers. People are just going to have to get used to that. I mean, that is literally what the be all and end all of this is. If we bring someone in, we bring someone in. If we don't bring them in, then get used to Harvey, get used to Curtis, get used to Naby, get used to Thiago, and we're sticking with that. And it's often good enough, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I'm still convinced we're on hold, I think, for next year, because I think that's when we get Jude Bellingham. It may not be the answer, but he's going to be something. I'd say that player. I think he's a very, very good player. And I think that's what we're doing. I think that's why Harvey's getting his time at the moment, because this is your year to shine. And he's good enough. There's no way he was out of his depth or anything like that on Monday night. His control was really good. He wanted a hat-trick in the first 5 minutes, which I like to see. I also like the fact no one's mentioned this, the fact that we got the trainer on to sort the goalkeeper out in 90 seconds. That was a great start. I really liked that. Went in on the goalkeeper in 90 seconds. I like that sort of thing. I hope we do it tomorrow. But Harvey Elliott's a very, very good footballer, and people are going to have to get used to that, just because his name's not Elietto or something like that. If that's what you want, just change his name.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's exciting that he looks to have the ability to do the job that we will likely need him to do, because like you said, the likely reality is not a late window surprise of two first team ready midfielders. The only thing I will say about the likelihood of, or the possibility of, the Jude Bellingham thing is, as has been pointed out by a few of the people on various shows, and it's one thing I was shouting from last year, if we are going to be waiting for him, we're actually going to need to sign at least one or two more others as well at that point. So then it becomes tricky, to say the least. But look,
I think that's going to happen though, because the squad is old.
Yeah,
and we've got the squad go because they keep winning things. So Kenny had this problem about as far back as 91, where suddenly his 88 side was suddenly all 32. And and then Souness had to come in and start playing McManaman and Hutchison and Redknapp and people like that. It's not an easy decision to make. So there are going to be massive changes, but he doesn't want to do what Forest are doing at the moment, where they brought in 23 new signings yesterday.
Yeah, and you know, whether people like it or not, that seems to be the plan. So we are along for the ride now, and we're hoping that we can do some positive business on the back of it. And one thing we know is going to happen, Lisa Marie, is that Bobby Firmino is going to come in now into that central attacking role for Darwin Núñez for 3 games at least. And now, if you were to go by the sample size of what we saw from Bobby in his previous outing, I think we'd all be running around pulling out our hair and screaming about being on fire because the lad was awful. But he does have that in him, and we also know that he's wonderful. And I've seen way too much stuff, Lisa Marie, about how he's done, he's washed, it's over, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not even slightly concerned about this situation. In fact, a bit like what Karl was saying earlier, I think there's going to be a familiarity to our play now, which will suit certain people in our attack and in our midfield. And there's going to be that industry that we usually get from Bobby Firmino, which will suit certain people, who would be struggling without that assistance of his defensive work from the top of the field, and foot in and interventions and pressing and all that. I find it exciting. He's going to get it. He's going to get us. He knows he has a little block of games to come in now, and if he does the job to the peak of his ability, well, then Darwin Núñez is back on the fucking bench. Tough shit, lad. You'll have to get back into the team again. And I love that situation for us, Lisa Marie, especially with United coming up now.
Well, and yeah, and I mean, that was happening, if you recall, last season. Bobby would play and not play well, and everyone would be, and then, he did have a run of form where he did very well for us. And I can't think of specifics. For some reason, the Arsenal games come to mind, but I could be making that up. Yeah. So he can do well. I mean, I think the trouble with him a little bit in the last couple of years is there's just been some inconsistencies to his game for whatever reason. But I'm not afraid of the fact that, he's who we're going to have for the next couple of games. And I mean, it may be good for Darwin, and even, once Jota's back, for him and Luis Diaz to both kind of have to, prove themselves or, play themselves in. I mean, we talked about that last year, Trev, where, once Diaz came in and everyone was talking about, that's it, Mane's going and, all this other, it's like, no, these are options. We have options. We have these, guys that can play in different spots across the front line. And it allows us to keep it fresh and to keep, our opposition to not necessarily know what to expect from us. And, if Bobby can come in and play better, hey, if he can just come and play better than he played against Fulham, then that's a win as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, that would also be very, very, very easy for him to achieve. So, we have to bear that in mind.
All right. Well, yes. I mean,
Karl, I want to bring you in on the thorny issue of the midfield area, because I think you've got quite strong opinions on this that most people will be familiar with, but I just want to give you a chance to clarify as well. With the fact that Harvey Elliott is doing well, I'm looking at who's available for us, and apparently the man of the most stories and rumors and fraught tweets by journalists, and then contradictory, equally fraught tweets by other journalists, is Naby Keita. He, however, is fully fit after being ruled out by illness for the Fulham game and not quite ready, it appeared, to even take any part in the last game, which I found was weird. But all good, really good, says Jurgen, all fine, which is classic Jurgenism. But we are without Joel Matip, without Thiago, without Ibu Konate, without Curtis, without Diogo Jota, Ox, Ramsey, Kelleher. and obviously Núñez. That is a hefty list of people not in contention. So it should make the Liverpool midfield selection quite simple. You imagine if Fab's fit, he plays. You imagine the captain plays, and then it's going to be either Hendo, or it's going to be either Elliott or Keita. But it doesn't really work that way in terms of position. So with the knowledge that I hate doing this, but it's so early in the season to do this, it seems absurd, but we can't really lose this one, and we really do need to win it. With that knowledge that game against United is coming up, and it has this extra sort of heft to it, like, do you see him going with the tried and trusted? You reckon it's going to be Hendo right side at 8, Fab sitting, and Naby Keita on the left, or do you think he's going to leave the kid in and move Henderson over to the left-hand side, or how do you think he goes?
I think he replaces Elliott. I think he trusts him more.
And with that in mind, then you reckon who do you think alongside Fab makes up the 3?
Henderson. He's not going to drop his captain for Old Trafford.
No.
They need as much organisation as possible, and they're the 2 senior players.
The only problem about that is he doesn't tend to operate too effectively over on that side. He's like far better on the right, isn't he, as an 8? So, but I think you're right. I think that I actually think that's absolutely what he does, and I think it will further underline all these question marks around Naby Keita, and that's what I'm bringing you in on. And at least
I think he comes on. I think Keita comes on.
Yeah.
Because these days, I know we've got so many subs, but you can always sort of roughly find out who they are. It's tricky with the forward line because they're all injured. But I think he definitely comes on. He took off Robertson and brought in Tsimikas. But with a full team, I don't think Keita gets in the first 3. I think it is Thiago, Henderson, and Fabinho. And
for you, and what I'm getting at here is not necessarily what we think the manager will do, because I think we can guarantee that we've probably called that. But personal opinion, because I always get the feeling that you're not that high on Naby Keita as a footballer, not necessarily anything to do with the fact that he has limited availability, although maybe that's frustrating you. But I always get the opinion that you're not that high on him as an option. And a lot of people have been saying in recent weeks, but especially over the last week and a half when all these stories have been going around about his contract, a lot of people have been saying sort of quite critical things about how he hasn't taken his chance, and he hasn't played well, and he hasn't done this, that, and the other. And then the counterpoints to them are kind of hard to argue with in terms of how well we've done when he's been on the pitch in terms of points accrued and his own individual stats and all that type of thing. So is it an eye test thing for you, or what's your opinion based on? Like, what metrics are you using to be comparatively critical of him in relation to, for example, a direct comparison with the captain, for example?
Yeah, thanks. If anyone missed that, that's Trev throw me under a bus. I've fallen out with many people about Naby Keita. I think he's a good footballer. I have seen him play in the flesh many times. I just don't think it's a coincidence that he's played twice in Madrid and been taken off at half-time on both occasions, or certainly early. I think he's all right. He's never going to be my first choice. I think we overpaid for him. I'm surprised he's getting a second contract. He's all right. I always think of him as a sort of decent 15-minute last 15-minute option. We played Southampton away when Mo got his ended what for him was a goal drought, and Naby got the first goal then, I think, and he made a difference. And he has pockets of the goal against Atletico Madrid. It's fantastic, but then again, he didn't bother tackling, and we conceded 2 goals because of it. It's a hard one for me, the Naby Keita thing, because I don't understand the whole Naby FC thing. I just don't get it at all. And I think people have gone way, way, way over the top, which is hardly his fault, I should say, about, oh my God, he's the best thing since sliced bread, and use it to beat up Milner and Henderson and Chamberlain, the English players. But bearing in mind, this is a fan base when I read on Monday that someone said that if Joe Gomez was white, he'd start ahead of Nat Phillips. I read that this week. So, this is the sort of level of zealotry we're talking at. I think he's all right. I'm surprised he's still here. I'm surprised he's got a new contract, but he plays for Liverpool and he's my man if he plays for Liverpool. But I'm not jumping on board with him being the answer to everything. He can't touch Thiago. I know it's a different role. He can't touch Thiago, and there's only 3 midfield places. And one of them's definitely gone, and the other one's for the captain most of the time, whether people like that or not. Tough shit. He's the most successful captain in this century and the last century probably. And tough shit. And Naby Keita doesn't fulfill that third role for me. It's Thiago.
Look, you know what? People will hear that and they'll hear what they want to hear, and
let's have a go. Feel free.
It's literally your opinion, and that's exactly what it is. And outside, other people will say that's outrageous. Why would you can't just select a guy because he's got an armband, and they'll have that story. And the truth is always whoever is taking the field, I'm absolutely high on them in that moment. And that it comes down to that. Obviously you'd have preferences, and my preference would probably maybe swing in the opposite way if it came down to a straight choice there, but then maybe not at times as well. So it's definitely not clear cut. There's not enough of a sample size of Naby Keita, sadly, for us being brilliant for people to be completely unequivocal about it, nor is there enough of a sample size of him being poor for people to be completely unequivocal about it. So that's what's interesting. And let's finish this little thing off by giving you your tuppence worth on this, Lisa Marie. Like, where do you stand on that in terms of, you can bring it back to the United game if you want, because I want to just go to one more thing on that before we go, just to talk about them a little bit. So in terms of your midfield selection, what would you be inclined to do versus what you think is likely to happen?
All right. So what I would be inclined to do would be Elliott, Fabinho, Naby. But I agree with what Karl said, is I think it's going to be Elliott, Fabinho, Henderson. Although I do not like Henderson on the left. As one or the other of you just touched on, he's just, it doesn't generally go very well. But I do think, Karl, you're right. It's the United game. He's the captain, and I think he's likely to start. And maybe it'll be Henderson, Fabinho, Naby. Maybe it's Elliott that doesn't start. But if I were selecting, I think I would do Elliott, Fabinho, Naby. But for me, with Naby,
after the first two, if we had 2 wins on the board, you might think about it.
Yeah, that's true.
I think he does everything he possibly can to push the percentage up.
That's a good point. I don't know. With Naby, the thing for me is just the consistency. There just has never been any consistency. And some of it, again, is not necessarily his fault. There's been, injuries or illness or whatnot, but it's just, to me, it's almost like when he is available to play, that's like a bonus, because it feels like he's not available. And I'm looking back over the last few years, it just feels like more often than not, or as much he's been available as he's not been available. So it almost got to a point where it's like, oh, Naby's available. Okay, bonus. So I don't know. And
then there was that spell as well where he was fit and available, and Klopp just wasn't selecting him.
And he wasn't selecting him.
So that should tell you quite a bit too about the realities. Whether we all have our opinions and stuff, but that might tell you a bit about the realities of who's going to get selected. And the reason I ask is just to spin this back around. It's huge for us. It's huge. It's always huge against Manchester United. Karl, you and I have spoken over the years about how it's a game that it's kind of hard to enjoy because of the levels over the years of sort of just angst that it induces. It's fucking that lot. And it could always be a one-off. You never know what was going to happen. And then in recent years, we're just better. But I thought that going into this season, I thought that in the first game, I thought we put it right in the second game and gave that a lot of tonking. We haven't done that yet. And having not done that, it's hard to be too bullish about how we're going to go out and destroy these. These are shit. These are rubbish. They're in disarray, blah, blah, blah. In fact, that kind of talk just makes me a little unsettled. So I'm going to bring you in on this, Karl, just to get your feel about this United game. Because if it's massive for us, it feels like it could be make or break almost for that manager, for them. Like, it's getting silly there. That place does appear to be on the face of it in a bit of a mess. You listen to their supporters talking, they back that up very much. The cohesion that this guy was supposed to bring with him, the sort of solidity, the certitude around the playing style. You look at the craziness of their recruitment, it's how haphazard it seems. You look at the whole Ronaldo situation, which must be stinking the place out, and you think, right, well, it's a good time to be playing them, but Karl, they need this so desperately, man. I mean,
it's time for them to play us, I think.
Yes, it is. That's cool.
It's that expression I would use from the West Wing, which is trying to get back into the game with one swing. And if you're beating Liverpool at Old Trafford, when we're already not having the best start, then that's a godsend to us. And the manager said last week, he said, I wish United had won 4-0 in both games. I don't want them losing 4-0. You know, one game doesn't bleed into another, but, you know, I'd rather they didn't have to make a reaction, because they're going to have a reaction on top of the fact that it's Man United.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a hard thing to do. So that's what I've been thinking all day. You know, we've just got to be professional about it. You know, we don't take any chances like we did against Palace. We don't do anything silly. And you just go out there and you play the match, not the occasion. Because if we do that, we beat them.
Yeah, Lisa Marie, you're taking this as well, because, like I say, for the record, it's pretty important, massive for them, regardless. I mean, it's just massive for them. But the point Karl makes is hard to avoid, and it's the one that's making me a little bit nervous, is, can it really get much worse? Can they really do much worse? But then you could counterpoint that with, well, are we really going to cough up points 3 games in a row? This crowd, this gang of players who we've seen achieve incredible things and who we know we can trust. So where are you landing with it? And you tend to skew optimistically, so I'm curious.
Yeah, I do tend to skew optimists to that end of the scale, but I think, and I've tried to kind of step back the last couple of days just from, the rhetoric online and all of the other, because the more I kept hearing just about how awful Man United are, the more nervous it was making me for the match on Monday, tomorrow, because I just was like, they have not shown anything good so far this season, but I don't want us to be their first win. So I am that I think I would have been if we had, won last week. And I hate these Monday night games. I just really am. I never really thought much about it until now, but I just really don't, because I hate the fact that it's, it's all through the weekend and, the results everywhere else. It just seems to kind of put a little more weight on the result for the teams playing, or for us specifically playing on Monday night, just, to see where things are going to lie. So I am a little more nervy about it, but I think, if we go into it with the right mindset, as you said, just kind of play our game, our traditional sort of game, I have every reason to believe that, we'll pull out the win.
I want to believe that too. I honestly, God, I do. And I think the three of us here would be inclined towards, thinking the best of this lot and being hopeful and all that type of thing. I still think there's a chance we can win every trophy this season. I just don't like that list of names that I read for you there a couple of minutes ago. It just feels, I thought that expression Klopp used was fucking brilliant. I wonder, has it come from German? Maybe someone might let us know, where he said last week that it felt like there was a witch in the building.
A witch in the building.
I thought that was great. That's really, really good, that one, because it just sums up the fact you said this is like a cursed week, like how many people can drop out, and to have that real hammer blow of the Thiago injury on the back of the sneaky one to Ibu that we didn't see coming, or they didn't seem to see coming, and all the other sorted things, to have Diogo Jota out, who we could pretty much really do with now, just around now. It's hard, and I part of my brain is going, is this going to be one of those seasons? We couldn't really complain too much if it was, but of course people will, and they'll think that it could have been fixed with a player or two. I don't know who's to argue with that.
The good thing to take away, I guess, glass half full. I mean, so far the injuries that we're seeing, I mean, none of them are long term. Although I've heard different things about Oxlade-Chamberlain, but for the most part, they're shorter term injuries. We're not seeing anyone. It's not like knockwood everywhere on my desk. The couple of years ago with Virgil and with Joe and everything, where those were, season ending injuries. Jota should be back here, I think, probably in the next, at least in training within the next week or so. And I'm not sure. I haven't really heard any timeline on Konate, but, I think, or Curtis Jones. But I mean, my understanding is they're not, multiple months of anything. Now I could be wrong and just haven't seen the whole picture, but I think that's just been kind of a little unlucky to pick up these, niggles and injuries first part of the season, kind of all at once. So hopefully, we're just getting it all out of the way now, and then it'll be good.
Well,
right?
the part of me, I like the little right at the end. The part of me that used to tug my forelock at Magpies would seem to be shouting at me that it's not a little unlucky. It's very fucking unlucky.
Sorry, tug your what?
I used to have a forelock, Karl.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, back in the day.
You're going back a bit now, though, yeah?
I'm going back a bit, yeah.
Okay. No, fair enough. It's just like a bit of verisimilitude.
No, it's important. It's important for you to get a bald joke in before the end of the show.
One a week.
I'm happy for you. Let's just while we're at this, let's just show the. Let's just explain to the listeners just a little bit about how the sausage is made here, because as we were getting ready to do the show there, I was saying to Lisa Marie that some guests of mine have departed recently, and they were lovely people, but quite a lot. They were a lot, I think, is what they would say in their own home country. And I said, they've gone, they've taken a chunk of my soul with them. And Lisa Marie says, should I be offended at this? Because they were compatriots. And I said, no, why would you be? They're my family. And Lisa Marie wasn't sure if it was because they were family or because they were American. I said, I love America and Americans. To which Coppack says, it's the Irish I can't stand.
I deny that.
That's where we're at here, is what I'm saying. And Karl, don't worry, man. I'm stopping before I read your next comment, which would not go over well.
I'm sorry, oh, me. Hey, I had a lovely Irish coffee with my dinner last night. Up the Irish. That's all I have to say.
Absolutely.
Well, I also just name drop the fact that my grandmother's name was Nana Mulligan. So,
Please
don't write in. No, but write in if you want. Write in. I'm not there anymore.
That was nice. That was nice context. To be fair, I did. I'm sure everybody picked up on that. Actually, one other slight bone to pick with you there. You seem to be querying my my Indian meal last night. What was that all about?
I sort of held back on it a bit because it might not have been you. It might have been someone who was not guilty of the crimes you've committed in the past. But you on Instagram you put a picture of your food, and it looks like you've ordered chips in an Indian restaurant.
So what you
had you already finished the omelette? Is that what's happened?
No, the omelette was it came out in a special plate where I ate it in a special booth where I didn't have to be affected by the atmosphere of the Indian restaurant. So no, obviously what we did was we got about 79 things because it was a birthday meal, and so we basically ordered like one of everything, and it was I swear to God that's what it was like. It was absolute gluttony, savagery of the highest order, but. The place was a place called Doolally in Dublin city centre, and I thought, I bet you that's from Indian culture some way or other. And I looked it up, and what of course, actually the word does come from a place called, I think, Dill Alley, which was a place that used to have a mental asylum back in the day. And so, you know, that's where the associations were made. So I love that, but I'll tell you what, it was a beautiful restaurant. And the food was outrageous. It was to mark the occasion of my child's 24th birthday. And I think at this point, having said that sentence, we should have a minute's silence for me. Because holy shit, that's quite a thing to find yourself saying out loud. But there it is. I can't deny it. And yes, there were something called, Karl, you'll love this, gunpowder curry chips. So I said, okay, we've got to see what they taste like. But surprise, surprise, it was chips with curry powder. But, you know, what you can do. But the rest of the food was absolutely outrageously good.
It looks nice, yeah.
I would heartily recommend it. There was quite a lot of treats. We might go into it in a little bit of detail some other point when we're talking about food, but I do want to keep an eye on the clock. It's about 5 minutes to go now, and I'm aware.
Well, before we go there, can I I've got it's not on Physio Room anymore, but I've got potential return dates for Liverpool players.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, please.
I mean, it's obviously it's not an exact science, any of this. Thiago, potential return 18th of September. It's not too far away. Jota, 3rd of the, September, so literally next week. Darwin Núñez, don't get me started. Cueva's back next week. Well, I can't really see him playing anyway. Queeving,
right?
Queeving, yeah.
Queeving,
sorry, I've got
right?
a friend called Queeving, that's why, Queeving. Curtis Jones, 27th of, next week, 27th of August. Joel Matip, 27th of August. Firmino, now. Chamberlain, no return date. Konate, no return date. Calvin-Ramsey, no return date.
Okay, so Konate is worse than I realized.
I think it's more lack of information all the other dates we've got quotes from the manager. Bobby is trained as normal and is ready. Konate, we have to see how long it'll take, but he's out for a while. That's the last quote on that.
Well, look, I mean, at least Joey Gomez got some minutes into his legs the last day, and he should be good. Well.
He looks good.
Yeah, and he should be good to start. And I would love the idea that him and Virgil, like what I said about Bobby, would do a madness for the next couple of matches and just be so good that Joel and Ibu are going to struggle to get back in. That's what we want. That's the only way we turn this adversity to our favour, is by playing well and getting results. If we don't do that, then it is a bit of a fucking disaster. We have to admit that. So it's going to be, there's going to be an extra layer of tension around the next couple of games, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I do kind of look forward to it, I have to say, even if it is another shitty Monday night game when everybody else has played. However, a few results have gone in our favour. Like you said, Chelsea got a tonking, City have dropped points, so it is an exciting sort of a spell already. The season's really off and running, but our show is not. We're into 57 minutes, and I want to give you a chance to finish up with whatever final thoughts you have. I don't have anything really specific that I want to say, so I'm not just going to fill airspace by making something up or doing a plug for the sake of it. So, Lisa Marie, is there anything you wanted to round up with?
No, although we were out to dinner last night as well to celebrate a birthday, my mother-in-law. So we also had a nice meal at a local restaurant. It was like a steak and seafood place. So very
nice. Good. Yes.
So happy birthday to my mother-in-law on the 24th of August. Yes. Well, that's it. I really don't have anything. So yeah, no, I'm not going to be able to watch the game live because, Monday night for you all would be Monday afternoon for me. And I actually have a meeting taking place during the first part of the game. So fingers crossed.
You're working like a real adult with a job. So, I mean, how are you supposed to get away in the middle of the day? It's what I'm saying. It's absurd. It's annoying. Let's get back to more regular footy times as soon as possible at the weekend. But Karl, I know you've something to plug if you want to finish off with that.
Well, I'm not around for the next week because it's my girlfriend's birthday and we're doing the 3 peaks this week. We're not doing them in the same day or anything like that. We're doing it over the course of a few days. And I've climbed Snowdon, my girlfriend's climbed Snowdon, and the other one, Scafell Pike, and we're doing Ben Nevis for the first time, which would be really nice between us. And I've been watching a documentary on Netflix called Sherpa. And if you've any doubt about colonialism, about the attitudes to people from so-called lesser nations, or certainly not as economically viable nations, watch this film. Basically, what basically happens is the Sherpas are the people who assist the getting the nice people up the mountain, and occasionally act almost like butlers to them. They certainly used to do that, and they take all the risks. They put the ladders across crevices where they should be, and what have you. And in this episode, they lost, I think it was 16 people on the mountain in 2014. And they basically said, hang on, we're not getting paid any more. You're being paid the tens of thousands of pounds to do this. We're being paid £400 a year to do this, and we're on taking all the risks, and they're not going to do it. It's worth watching this film for the last 10 minutes where the bloke who runs the tours, who's sympathetic all the way through, he's lost people that, he's been camped with and what have you. And he basically just says at the end, I don't know why you're trying to ruin my business. And there's one bloke who says he's paid his 10 grand to get over there and he wants to climb the mountain and he's frustrated, which I get, obviously. But when the Sherpas refuse to, they're saying we'd rather lose money and not go up because, hey, we respect the mountain, which is a big thing for them. And we've lost our friends and we're tired of this. And one man says, there's the rumor going around that some Sherpas have said about some other Sherpas, if you help anyone on that tour, we'll break your legs. That's not in any way, there's no validation of that whatsoever. That's just said. And this bloke turns to the camera and he says, when someone threatens somebody not to do something through violence, they become a terrorist. And we all know about terrorists because of 9/11. He just lost 16 people and is refusing to go up the mountain. And it just, that film is just, it's one of those documentaries where you end up shouting at the telly and you don't know why.
I was just, for a while, I was wondering, is this fiction based on fact? But it's obviously a documentary then all the way through. Okay. It does sound fascinating and probably not one for me at the moment. I'm not exactly high on the British Empire just now. I've been doing a bit of reading around that myself. And I had a conversation about the very visceral reaction I had to visiting the British Museum recently. I came out and the last time I was that annoyed was when I staggered out of the cinema having watched In the Name of the Father back in the early 90s.
Good Lord.
And I staggered out onto O'Connell Street and I was like, bastards!
Filmed in Liverpool.
What's that?
Filmed in Liverpool.
Yes. Exactly.
The court scene at the end of George's Hall.
Exactly. So, that might be one to avoid for the...
Have you read the book, by the way? Vision's Innocence?
I have.
Jesus Christ, that made me... I read that on a holiday in about the mid-90s. God, that made me shout.
Yes, but that is it's because you said that. That's what made me think of it. Shouting at the TV. That's exactly what I'd be doing. Yeah. So probably best avoid it just now because I'm out here shouting at the clouds most times. Old man that I am. We'll wrap it up there. It was lovely to chat to Lisa Marie Hanahan and to Karl Coppack. I've been Trev Downey. This is the Anfield Index Podcast, and we'll be back with you next week.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at anfieldindex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.